Okay, let's see. So today I'm gonna teach you how to enhance a data source, right? We will be using a custom BAdI implementation to enhance the data source that we have. So let's take the example of tourist 11 VHDR. So this is the data source we are gonna enhance. What we are gonna enhance also, I'll just give a gist of it. So let's check the maintenance structure first, right? So what you have on the right side is your communication structure, and what you have on your left side is your extract structure, right? What we're gonna do is we have your KUNNR, which is sold to party, or basically your a key field of the customer table, right? So if you have a look at KNA1 customer table, your KUNNR is the key field. So we're gonna add a couple of fields from this table, right? So we're gonna add the field city, right? So the field city ORT01 into your uh, data source, right? Uh, Let me also just show you that whether ORT01 exists in your communication structure or not. Your ORT7, so everything is sorted in alphabetical order, guys. So when you usually check it, you can see LMNO. Yeah. So your ORT01, which is your city, it doesn't exist. So our aim is to add that, right? We'll go step by step of how to do the process. So first things first, always the best practices before you enhance a data source, make sure that your setup tables are empty, right? So in order to delete setup tables, let's go to LBWGT code, and we're going to enhance tool is 11, right? So your application component is 11. So you want to enter 11 and execute. It's going to ask if data will be lost. Yes, we deleted the setup tables. Uh, yeah. So let's go back to LBWV. Your LBWV is your T code for checking your standard extractors, your LO data extraction. So we were about to enhance this one, right? NC11, I mean tool is 11 VHDR. So let's get to it. The first step is obviously we have deleted the setup tables, right? The idea is we have to add the fields into your communication structure. So in order to do that, there are two ways, right? Uh, the first way is you go to SE11, you can type MCV back, right? And that will display the structure, and you can append a structure here, right? That is one way. But the more, I would say, easier way is you can do the same thing, let's say, in your HANA Studio or your Eclipse tool, right? So what we're going to do is, what we are going to do, I just close all these so that, gosh, there are a lot of things here. Do apologize for that. Uh, I'm using a lot of them. Anyways, let's get on with that. So let's search for it. So the idea is we're going to search for the structure MCVBAC in your ABAP project of your S4 system, right? So MCVBAC, we search it, you're going to get the MCVBAC object here. Uh, Appending the structure in Eclipse or in your HANA Studio is much easier, right? So you have a symbol here that says it has been extended with some previous append structures, but we are going to add our own, right? Or you can add to the append structure that already exists if it has been added from the KNA1 table, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to right click this. We're going to say new append structure. We'll give it a name, let's say ZZ or ZAPS append structure for KNA1, right? So let's give it a description saying append structure for your customer, right? For your customer for MCV back, right? Next, we will, sorry guys, we'll assign it to your temp package, right? Yeah. So we're going to make it a local object as such, right? So now this is your extend type MCV back with ZAPS KNA1. So that is your name of your structure. So now let's add uh, the fields that we want, right? So what do we want? We want, let's say we want the city, right? So we want the city ORT01. The how many number of fields you want, you can add it, right? There's no limit as such on how many you want. So let's say ORT01, and if you do control space, you'll get a loads of uh, data elements that do exist, right? So if you see, there's a data element called ORT01, which is your 25 character length, and it's your city that matches with what we have in the table, right? So let's add that. Uh, sorry, I think it's 25, right? Let's see, 25. Maybe not this one. Yeah, this one. Sorry, your GP. Yeah, ORT01 GP. So that is what you want. 35. Add a semicolon, and you're done. That's it. So I mean, depending on how many fields you want, you can add more and more, right? But just for example, I'm taking a single field, right? So now let's activate this. Let's see the problems tab if anything has come up. These are, I think, something else, right? Not these are different errors for some other objects, so don't mind me. Yeah, let's activate this again, then I'll show you that there's no error with this. Is it activating? Yeah. Okay. Yes, it is activated. Okay. So now that it is activated, let's go to MCV back again, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit F5, right? F5 is for refresh. Once you hit F5, the most important thing is you're gonna click on this. Well, I don't know how to describe it, but a symbol there which will show extended width, right? So your extended width, this thing has your ZAPS KNA1, right? So append structure for customer for MCV back. This is what we gave. And you can also, if you want, you can hit Control F and find ORT. Find it. Where is it? Will be there with your your includes are here, right? It'll be there. Uh, there is one more way to find it. You can just see that it's extended, right? That's the most important thing. Now what we're going to do is we'll head back to the S4 system, right? uh, what we're going to do is we're going to look at LBWE again and see if what it 01 exists there or not, right? So let's go to LBWV again, and we will be seeing the data source. Yeah, so let's do one thing. Let's make it inactive, right? Let's give a T code that you want. Yes. Okay. So now we're gonna see if ORT01 has come up here or not. So earlier I showed you that it didn't exist, but now the idea is that since we have added it, LMNO, yeah. So now you can see city is existing here, right? Earlier it didn't exist, but now it does, right? So this is the first step of enhancement. You append the structure, then all you have to do is send it over to that side, right? And if you just come, yeah. So your city is on your extract structure. Sorry, this is your communication structure. The right hand side, this is your extract structure. So your city is here. Good. We'll say okay. We'll say yes. We want to confirm. Ask for a T code. Give it your T code, whatever T code you have. You can create a new request, or you have a particular request also. That's fine. So it says structure is generated successfully. No errors. Nothing is there. Right. So that's like a big step. It'll be inactive. Right. It'll be inactive. Now, what you have to do is before you activate this, before you act or let's activate it. Let's activate it. Not an issue. First things first. Click here, right, and just search for it if you want. Right, you can search for it, or I think you should find it. Yeah. Uncheck the hide field box. Save it. Ask for T code again. Give that. So now it went from red to yellow color, so it's inactive. Let's make it active now, right? So as such, your structure is activated and everything is fine, but you have only done half the part, meaning you have defined a structure and you have appended it what you want, but you still need the data to be filled. I mean, you need the logic that will populate the city column in your data source, right? So for that, what we use is a BAdI. So BAdIs are your business add-ins. Remember that BAdIs generate an interface, right? And if you're familiar with ABAP OOPS concept, then BAdI interfaces are nothing but a set of methods, right, which can be implemented by multiple classes, and those methods, based on which class they are defined in and how they are implemented, it will function according to that, right? So if we go to SE18, right, uh, there's a BAdI associated with your enhancing your data sources, which is your RSU5 SAPI BAdI, right? Keep this in hand, right? If I just display it, this is your SAP given BAdI, right? It's your custom, I mean your classic BAdI that exists, and it has this is your interface, right? And this interface has two methods: your data transform and your hierarchy transform. So we'll be using this method. So the idea is that you have to implement your data transform method uh, in a class that you're going to code, right? Now here, given that we already have the interface, the idea is to implement this method in a class. So in order to do that, uh, we're going to SA19, right? And we're going to create an implementation, right? for your classic BAdI, right? Again, you have to understand that there's a difference between enhancement spots and BAdIs. Normally, an enhancement spot will have a BAdI that you will add to create an interface and implement its methods. But in this case, your BAdI is already there, right? So you can create the implementation, right? Let's name it ZMC. Let's name it ZRSU5 BWDS. What do we give it? Yeah, enhancing, right? So let's say that ZRSU5 BWDS ENH. So let's take a notepad and let's note this down, right? Let's keep this name handy and yep. So you have your name. Let's create this, right? Now the idea is that when you create an implementation, right, it will yeah, let's add a description. Data source enhancement, right? Enhancement, yep. Yeah, let's have a look at interface. Yeah, so now the idea is that uh, once you have created an implementation, automatically there will be a class generated for you where you can code the method. Right now, a very important thing to note here is that normally you will be creating the implementation only once, right? So people that want to enhance other data sources will use the same class and will create other methods, right, to enhance other data sources, right? So normally, I mean, the best practice is that you don't always create an implementation every time you want to enhance a data source. You only do that once, right? Since we are, I mean, like, doing this as an example, I'm creating it. But there, if I mean, if you talk to people and if you know that a class already exists for implementation, then never create new implementations, right? Let's activate this first of all. uh, Activate it. Let's make it a local object, right? uh, yep, your object is activated, right? Implementation will be called. Okay, so now what we will do is, let's keep the class name handy as well. Note it down, right? This is your class. Okay, so now let's code the class, right? Okay, I'll teach you the best practice. So go to SE24 first, right? Type the class name, display it. You'll see that it has two methods, right? Your data transform and your hierarchy transform, right? And you have your hierarchy transform. So now the best practice is that usually you try to create a template method, right? So now what this template method does is that when somebody else is going to enhance another data source, they will use it. That is one use of it, right? The other use is that uh, the other use of a template data source is it will bring a uniformity to your code and it will give you a reusability, right? Or in a more simple case, we are gonna code in the data transform method a conditional code, basically, or what I or let's put it in simple terms. In your data transform method, you're going to write the code that will check which data source is coming and then call another method that is there in the class to populate the logic, right? Normally you can directly write the logic to populate. That is the, I would say, not the best practice or the best way to do it. You can do that, but that's will make your class likely to be unusable or not able to reuse again. So I'll show that to you, right? Let's do one thing. Let's copy this method and let's paste it here, right? And let's say template method, right? So this will be a template method. This will be a, let's make it a static method. I don't know if you're familiar with the difference between instance or static, but simple difference is static methods don't need a class object to call it. Your instance method will need objects to call it, right? And in particular, you will make your you know your methods instance method so that only the object that calls your this particular method will have a separate memory location created for it, right? In fact, that's also a point. Your static methods will have a similar data location allocated to it, but your instance methods, when called by different objects, will have different memory allocations to it, right? So we'll copy once more. uh, copy that, and okay, one sec, we don't need this. Yeah, so you have that. So this will name it as we are enhancing VAHDR, right? To list 11. So let's name it list 11 VAHDR without the 2, right? We will activate this. Yeah, rename it. It's fine. A lot of stuff to be activated. Okay, your class is activated, right? Now let's code it, right? Let's code the class, and in order to do that, we'll go into the HANA Studio, right? So I have the class open, right? So now this class, uh, we can just refresh it. Yeah. So there are a couple of things here, right? So you can see your 11 is VHDR method, right? Uh, you have your data transform method. You have your uh, hierarchy transform, so that's not needed, and this is your uh, list 11 VHDR method. So this is what we're going to do. But before we do that, in the template method, oh sorry, one more thing, you can just usually close this once you activate it, right? So that it won't give a user is already, yeah, okay, you can now do that. Yeah, so that's like never keep your SC24 in edit mode open, otherwise you can't make changes here. So yeah, now what we'll do is the most important thing here is that you have to remember a couple of fields, right, that we'll be using during our logic population, right? So the most important things are to remember is your I underscore data source. Your I underscore data source is the field that you will get the data source name, right? And your C underscore T underscore data is an internal table, right? If you're familiar with ABAP, internal tables basically they store data as such and in a particular memory. So this internal table is what you're gonna populate or change, right? And what we will be doing is, instead of writing the logic to populate in the data transform method, we will be writing the logic to populate in this method, right? The idea is that uh, anytime any data source, logic population, an extraction for a data source is called, what happens is, you call this method data transform, and your data transform method will call the method for that particular data source. So for example, we are doing lis11vhdr, so you will be calling that this method from this method, right? So in order to do that, what we'll do is, first and foremost thing, we also have the template method. But before we define the template method, first we will define what we'll do in the data transform method. So what we'll do in the data transform method is, we will define three objects, right? uh, Three objects. The first object will be an object called L source, which will be the type RSAOT S underscore O source. Do we have that? Yeah. So what this, if you just see this, this is your type RODI NAP 100. So what we are going to do is, we are going to define this, right? We are going to define another type that will be dynamically assigned. So in order to dynamically assign it, usually what you do is, uh, you do a reference back to data, right? And you have another one, let's say method name, a variable, that type is SEOCMP name. So what this does is, this is the component name, right? So what this will do is, usually this uh, type of data can store your data source name, like how you get in your I underscore data source, right? So we will define these three, right? And what we are going to do is, the process is that you try to get the data source structure that you're trying to enhance, right? And that structure, you're going to assign it to a field symbol. Actually, I forgot one more thing. We have to define a field symbols. So your field symbols are, what they do is, you can create you create field symbols usually to assign a particular data type when you don't know what data type you're gonna get, right? Meaning, let's say somebody is gonna enter a table name, and you're gonna assign that table structure to, you want to get that structure in a variable. So in that time, what you do is, you use a field symbol, right? So your field symbols, let's name it LF, simple name, type standard table, standard table, right? So your field symbol LF is there, right? So first things first, what we will do is, uh, we will call a method. Okay, there is a method called RSA, sorry, not method, I mean function, sorry, function, RSA1 single OLTP source get. So what this does is this function will return you your structure, right? Or it'll return a variable which will have the structure name in it, right? So why we are doing this is basically the purpose of this is that you can also will get the signature of this function. If you hit control and shift enter, if you hit shift enter, sorry, yeah, if you hit shift enter, you will get the whole signature of the function. So our idea is that by default your data transform method will bring in the I underscore data source, will bring your update mode, your select, your fields, your C underscore T underscore data, right? Our idea is, since we are writing this method to call another method that will populate the logic, so the idea is we have to get the structure and then we pass that structure to when we are calling the method from this method. uh, so let's do that. What we'll do is we'll remove a couple of things, not all of them are required. You only need your object version. Remember that you only need things that are here, right? So I mean, we will remove the rest of it. We don't need all this. You can remove them. You can uncomment this. You will be exporting, meaning you will be giving input to the function, right? When you're implementing, it's exporting. When you're defining it, you will label it as importing. We need the ESOLTP source. So we need the OLTP source, or basically the data source structure, which we are gonna enhance, right? We're gonna take all this and keep the exceptions, keep them, okay? And maybe you can write your C sub RCZ. So your SY sub RC field is generally your return code, right? So if your return code is 0, which means statements previous to it were executing successfully. If they don't execute successfully, then it will return some return code. So that's what your C sub RC is. So for this, we'll just write an exit if it is not going to satisfy. So now here, what we'll do is we're going to give a data source name, right? So by default, as soon as you start executing your data source, it'll create an object. It'll call this method, and when that method is called, it'll pass its name. And when it comes inside this method, the first thing I want to do is call this function. This function will take the data source name. Your object version is A, right? What your object version means is whether it's active or not, right? That's your A. It is A, right? And now you're going to import this one, right? So this is what you will be importing, or in other words, what we are trying to say is that we're going to give the data source name and get the structure, right? What I mean by structure is, if we saw it yesterday, we have sorry about that. Yeah, so when we went to LBWE, we saw that there are this is your structure, right? Your extract structure, MC, sorry, 11, right? We were doing, my bad. Uh, yeah, so your MC11 VA0 HDR is your structure, right? So we need to get this name, right? When I give the data source name. So that's what your function is doing. Even the data source name, you're getting that. You're not directly getting it, of course. That also I'll make it clear to you. You won't get it directly. You'll only get it once. How you will get it is, you'll get your L source. Okay, your now L source will have a value, right? Now what we'll do is, we'll create data, which is your L data is now referred to a data. Now we can create it, right? L data, create data, L data, and this L data, okay, will be a type table of your, in brackets you'll write your L source, and your L source will have uh one sec, I think we should, yeah, so your L source will have couple of fields, right? And in that field there is a field called extract. So what this extract is, your extract structure for a data source, right? What is your extract structure is nothing but this one, MC11 VA0 HDR. So your MC11 VA0 HDR is the field, I mean it's the extract structure that has the field your ORT01, right? Your city is in your uh, extract structure, right? We added that yesterday. So now you got your uh, extract, right? You got our extract structure name. So once you've got your extract structure, now you are aware that what you're gonna enhance, right? So your data source, when it extract, it calls this method. This method will by default get your I'll just show the definition of this method also. I forgot it, but it will be similar to these, but you can go to definition and you can see that it imports I underscore data source, I underscore update mode. All these fields are imported into your this method, and it changes that internal table c underscore t underscore data, right? Now uh, now that you have got it, you got your extract structure name, that's good. Now what you can do is, you are going to uh, assign your field symbol. You add a field symbol define, which was LF. It's a standard table type. You'll assign this L data to, in order to assign it to your LF, your field symbol, and you'll also assign C underscore T underscore data, your internal table format, to your LF. So you're gonna do both of this, right? And once that is done, now what you'll do is, you will your underscore data source is there. Your underscore data source, the data source name that will be passed to this method when it's going to execute. Now your usual data sources have a preceding number to the name, right? So By default, the method name is lis11vahdr, right? But your data source name will be 2lis11vahdr, right? So we have to remove that 2 and then call the method, right? We can't do the operation on I underscore data source itself, right? So instead what we do is we have declared this variable called method name, right? Your method name will have your I underscore data source variable name, right? And okay, type COCMP name. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Your method name will be your I underscore data source. What is this? Is unknown. Sorry. Okay, it's underscore. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, underscore. Okay. Uh, Now we are gonna take a case statement to simply uh, remove that 2. So normally 2 or 0 or any preceding number that's there to your data source name. So we'll just add a comment saying 2 ls 11 or 2 ls xxxx any name, right, is being changed to lis so on so on so on, right? So that's what we are doing here, right? So case method name, method names first character, right? First character, so it's 1, right? It's a name, it's a string will have characters in it as such. And when it is 0 or it is 2, then all you have to do is shift your method name. So you're going to shift your method name by 1 character, right? So that will basically make your 2 lis something something to lis something something, right? So that's what you're going to call, right? You have a method here for that. When others, right, you just don't do anything. You can just say in case you're not going to do anything, we'll just in the case statement, right? And now we will call method, but before that we'll check one more condition. Let's check if c underscore t underscore data, so always use control space to autofill stuff in your HANA Studio or Eclipse IDE, right? So check c underscore t underscore data is not initial, right? Meaning sorry, initial, right? So once we check if it is not initial, right, then what we'll do is we will call your method, right? We'll call your method your method will be nothing but your method name, right? So we are going to export. So what will we be exporting, right? So our idea is to call this method, right? This is the method we have to call, and this method has what parameters? So we go here in the definition. These are the things that method wants, right? It wants iData source, it wants iUpdate mode, ID select, ID fields, c underscore t underscore data. C underscore t underscore data is what it's going to change, right? So we're going to export uh, I underscore data source, which will be your I underscore data source only, right? We aren't changing it. Your I underscore update mode will also be same. Your transfer mode, whether it's full delta, that'll be depending on how your DTP is calling that. And then you have I underscore select, that is your conditions if you have any that are being imported, and your I underscore fields will also be the same. So what your I underscore fields are, your requested fields, right? uh do apologize, you don't need full stops here, right? uh, you're gonna export these basically when you are implementing. If you are exporting, that means you're giving it to your method, right? You can also remove the full stop here, right? Okay, you are exporting these and you're changing your c underscore t underscore data equal to your which one, what will we select here. So remember that you have to pass a structure here, right? Basically, so which one is your structure assigned to your field symbol lf, so we will give that, right? Give that, and I think that's it, I guess. Anything else is there? Changing it. So once your c underscore t underscore data is given, so catch your cx c din call illegal method is that. Yeah, so what this does is this catches your uh, an exception, so that if there's any error or exception that occurs, it'll catch that. We'll end it here, right? It says, sorry, you also have to do a try. Sorry about that. And try, usually try it, okay? I mean, you don't directly execute it, right? You do a try and then try, so that only your try and then try can catch exceptions, okay? And why we are catching exceptions in the first place is you don't want to simply call a method, right? And then if there are errors persisting in it, and that basically brings you errors when you're trying to execute, so we are trying to catch the exception. So that is done, right? So simply revise or just give you a gist of what we did. We basically called a function, right? A function that would get you your extract structure based on data source name you give, right? So if this is your data source name, you want this structure name, right? And when you get that structure name, all you have to do was assign a field symbol to it, right? That's what you did here. And then you took a simple case statement to shift your method name, right? And then what you did was you had called the method, this method, right? Or which will populate the logic, right? You're like exporting your data source name, your update mode, your conditions, your fields that you have, and you're changing your c underscore t underscore data. Now we'll write the main logic, right? Now, what we have to do is you have to again define a field symbol. Let's say ls data or any name you want, and this type would be, so we are trying to enhance tool is 11 VHDR, right? So in that your extract structure name is MC11VA0HDR, right? So we have to give that name, right? So MC11VA0HDR, we're gonna give that, and then your c underscore t underscore data is there, right? Remember that your c underscore t underscore data will have all the fields that are like already there in your extract structure populated. What won't be populated is the city field that we added. So we added ORT01, right? If we have a look at the maintenance structure again, so we added this city field, right? ORT01 or any other fields that you might have added. So that field you have to populate. So in order to populate that, what you will be doing is you will be looping at c underscore t underscore data, assigning each row to your ls data, right? It's a loop, it's just like any other loop. And then your ORT01, right? Your ORT01 comes from which table? It comes from your customer table, right? So we saw that yesterday. You have your KNA1 table. Your KNA1 table has your city field, right? And that city field is going to come from KNA1, and the key field for this is your customer field, right? So you have to match the customer in your c underscore t underscore data to your KNA1 table. So in order to do that, what we do is select let's take your ORT01 from KNA1, right? Where your KNA1, your kunner, your customer is same as your in this row, your ls data, have to give at the rate here. Do remember that, right? Because it's a field symbol. You're going to then find your customer, your sold to party field, right? You're matching them, and once you match them into where are we going to do that? We are going to populate the city field. So you have to write your code for that. Which field? ORT01, your city. Full stop, and end select, and end your loop also. So that's it. See, the logic to populate your extract structure is like what, 4 lines, right? And if you take this end select end loop statements, it's all a simple case of selecting the field from the table, match the key fields, and just put a into statement your field, right? But the statements that we wrote in order to call that method is larger, but that's the most important step. Now, one more thing is your class will give you errors unless you fill the template method also. Let's fill the template method, and in the template method, we will comment it out, right? So you can either right click and go to source code and add comment, or you can also do, there are shortcuts for it as well. You can do it this way also. So what you're doing is, in this template method we are storing the uh, how would what would I call it, the method, or I mean the steps of how to do it, so that somebody who comes into your code will understand how you did your whole enhancement thing, right? And next time if somebody wants to uh, use this method, they can also we'll add this also, add that also. So next time if somebody wants to enhance, they don't have to write a code from scratch. Code will be there already. All they have to do is just make changes in this code, maybe the key fields and other things, and execute it. So now if we activate the class, uh, any problems? I don't think this is I think this is a different error. I think let's delete that. Let's activate it again. It's a different build. uh, Activating it now. Yeah, it's activated, right? It is active. There are no errors as such. Now what we'll do is we'll run a trial uh, extraction, right, to see if our city is getting populated or not. So in order to do that, first and foremost thing, or one more important thing we need to do is, of course, we did empty our setup tables, right? Yesterday we emptied our setup tables as such. We did this, and before you again fill your setup tables and do your extraction, one important thing is always check if a subscription exists in the T code ODQ right? If you click on this banner, yeah, your 2 11 VHDR has subscription already, but in case there is no subscription, right? In case, right, the way how to create a subscription is you can go to SE38. You can run a program called RODPS REPL test. Where's that? Yeah, this program you can run, and you can give your data source name, right? By default, it'll 11 VHDR. Yeah, and you can simply execute last delta. You can just execute it. There won't be any data, obviously. We don't have data and setup, but it'll create a subscription, right? So if you go back to ODQmon, you can see that your subscription will be there, right? In this case, it's already there. So, but if you want to, if there are, if I mean, the best practice is check if there's a subscription, and if it is zero, then go to SE38, run that program. Okay, now we will uh, fill the setup table, right? So your T code is OLI7BW. We'll give an advanced date. We will say VBAK, or we'll say sales 1, right? We'll fill it, and let's execute it. Okay, Okay, there are some faulty documents, but that's the that's the system. It's a normal practice system, right? But anyways, it would have bought data, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Now we go to RSA 3, and we will give our uh, data source name. We will choose what we want. So RT01